because my name is Steve Austin, and tonight for a very, very short while, your name is Eric Bischoff. Fuck Taz, right? No, fuck you! Very simply, I got one fucking word for you.
Hello, my name is Bob Bamber and welcome to the Wrestling 20 Years Ago podcast. We're going back in the time machine to November of 1995 for Volume 3 of this month's show. Volume 1 is WWF looking at Survivor Series. Volume 2 is WCW looking at World War 3. We're here for all our ECW action. I'm being joined firstly by Chris Lacey. Chris, hello.
Evening, Bob.
And Tom Martyn.
Hello, Bob. How are we?
Very well, thank you, Tom. Tom, kick us off with the news.
Sabu made his return at the ECW November to Remember show this month after finishing up with WCW and agreeing to a one-night deal. Paul Heyman announced him in true Paul Heyman style at the show before Sabu wrestled a very competitive match against Hack Myers. Sabu ended up working Hakushi at a Dennis Corluzzo event earlier in November, which WWF insisted went to a DQ as Sabu was still perceived to be a WCW guy. Sabu claimed that ECW came through with a one-night offer far in excess of any deal he had previously been offered.
With regards to Sabu's departure in WCW, it said that the company had been upset at him for a number of reasons. Firstly, his style of wrestling that featured too much time outside of the ring and not being able to keep to a time limit during television matches. Other stories including him not wanting his weight announced, so he wasn't typecast as a light heavyweight, and in not wanting to be a mid-card performer.
The Public Enemy held a meeting with Vince McMahon in early November, although it's said both of them and WCW are interested in signing them. The duo worked a dark match against the Smoking Guns at Survivor Series, although reports on the match weren't great. Apparently WCW have offered them a 6-month contract, which would likely be worth more money, although Rocco Rock does want to work in the WWF.
After a series of brief matches, November to Remember featured 5 10-plus minute matches culminating in a sluggish brawl between Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer against Raven and Cactus Jack. Elsewhere on the show, Mikey Whipwreck retained his ECW title against Steve Austin, who attacked Sandman before the match, and Rey Mysterio defeated Psychosis in a Mexican death match. There were also wins for Bill Ray Dudley, Conan, Stevie Richards, the Pitbulls, Sandman and 2 Colt Scorpio, Sabu and Bill Alfonso.
Commissioner Todd Gordon and Beulah McGillicuddy showed us all more than even we thought she would.
I am going to fight Bill Alfonso right here.
I can't wait.
And I want you to know what the stipulations are.
Alfonso blindsided Commissioner Gordon.
I can't believe it. This is my segment. You are not allowed on my show.
A segment? You're a woman. You're lucky to even be in Bill Alfonso's ring.
Whoa. Todd Gordon trying to fight back. Alfonso going to work on the commissioner with the chair. Beulah's upset. Not that she cares about the commissioner, but her segment's been interrupted.
You keep your hands off of me. You slut.
How dare he?
I'm Bill Alfonso, and I can do it.
Todd Gordon takes down Alfonso. Get him, Todd. Get him. Alfonso's got the advantage now. Beulah jumps Alfonso. We've got another cat fight. Get him, Beulah. Get him.
Ever since I came here, I knew she wanted me. You seen that girl?
Are you
right
kidding me?
She's a big whore.
You kid, how dare you say that?
She charges the guys in the back room. Get her out of my ring.
What? And Beulah all over Alfonso again. And who could blame her? Commissioner Gordon is down and out. And Beulah breaks free. Honestly, I think the guys let her go. Who doesn't want to see Bill Alfonso get beaten down?
I've done it again. That's twice in a row. I've laid out Todd Gordon. I've sent women screaming. I've sent all the ECW fans home embarrassed. I'm Bill Alfonso. Todd Gordon, you think I'm through with you? Wrong again. ECW, you think I'm through with Todd Gordon? You're wrong too. I'm gonna kick your butt every time I get a chance. Todd Gordon, I'm Bill Alfonso, and don't you ever forget it. You understand me?
Right, a rather more complicated show than usual tonight. I'm presenting the bulk of it, but Tom is going to be taking us through the presentation of the November to Remember shows. He's got the match notes on those. But we will start with the TV review for the first two shows before November to Remember. We start on November the 7th. JT Smith takes on El Puerto de Ricaño. Smith screws up getting into the ring, and Ricaño almost wins it with a standing moonsault before hitting a plancha to the outside. Smith then messes up a top rope moonsault but stays in it. Despite this, Smith hits a lovely slingshot powerbomb and wins the match. After the match, Sandman comes out with a cane and lays waste to both of them. Hack Myers beats the piss out of Dances with Dudley. Sandman comes out with two canes this time and starts whipping them both to the tune of chants of Shah, shit, Shah, shit. We get a singles match between Flyboy Rocker Rock and Too Cold Scorpio for the TV title. However, if Scorpio wins, he becomes one half of the new tag team champions. We get near the Eagle's Nest and Scorpio does a moonsault to Rock through two tables. Rock goes for a drive-by through a flaming table, then nearly sets himself on fire. Scorpio tries to help him put it out, and they present that as a show of respect. The pair hug before Scorpio sucker punches him and wins the titles. Sandman comes out to deal with Grunge and Scorpio offers him the other title. The people in the ECW. In post-production, they put up a graphic calling him 2 Gold Scorpio. We then see a recap of Bill Alfonso getting into a fight with Beulah. Alfonso calls her a slut and a whore. ECW's treatment of women continues to be first class. On to November the 14th, Cactus Jack tells ECW fans to get ready for the most boring match they've ever seen. Funk emerges with Jack's opponent, Tommy Dreamer. Both Dreamer and Jack decline to attack. Dreamer tries to goad him into hitting him, but Jack grabs a headlock. They go to the outside. Jack declines a chair and does another headlock. Eventually Dreamer does go on the offense, but Jack refuses to attack. Raven then comes out and lays out Dreamer. Jack gets on the apron, spells out WCW with his hands, then jumps off the apron onto the ground instead of doing his elbow. Eventually Jack does start fighting until he grabs a microphone and says he made a vow not to put his body on the line for the ECW fans again. Jack says he's injured his hand in the match and it's a no contest before telling the fans to support the Terminator family this tomorrow evening. Jim Molyneux grabs the mic and says we don't have no contests in ECW, so Jack tells him to count him out. Funk grabs the mic as Jack walks up the aisle. He calls Jack's mum a whore, his girlfriend a whore, his son Dewey a whore. That seems to do the trick. Dreamer and Jack finally start brawling. Dreamer pile drives Jack, but Jack backdrops him onto a chair. Dreamer then somehow manages to do an enziguri kick with a chair wrapped around his foot, but Jack sends him to the outside and Raven DDTs him on the floor. Beulah comes out, throws some brass knuckles to Raven, who decks Dreamer. Raven then takes the knuckles to Jack's boot. Jack then kicks Funk in the bollocks. Cactus DDTs Dreamer. Raven tells him to finish it and demands that he use a chair. Dreamer then hits Jack with a chair, pins Cactus and wins the match. Raven then comes into the ring and DDTs Dreamer. Jack DDTs the ref, and I've got in my notes, it's all happening. Chris, we won't spend too long on this match. We've got plenty else to cover, but your brief thoughts on this?
I thought this was a really, really well-worked match. Obviously, you had the beginning part where it was Jack basically going, no, I'm not going to fall into this and do what you want us to do. Rest hold. Which obviously he did last month, which was just gold. I loved the use of Funk. I loved how Raven got involved and Stevie got involved. It all sort of worked. And then when it did sort of go into a brawl, it was what they do best, you know, the insecurity with the chair around his foot, how Tommy thought that'll be something to do, was genius. And it was a really good match. I definitely recommend going and checking it out.
Yeah, dare I say, spoiler alert, but I enjoyed this probably far more than I actually enjoyed on what we got on November to Remember, but we'll compare that later on. Anyway, we will shoot straight on to a match that we're going to view properly. Next up, it's Mysterio and Conan versus La Parka and Psychosis. Mysterio starts with some arm submissions, but Psychosis deadlifts him. Mysterio takes him back to the ground. Mysterio does a drop toe hold. Psychosis goes flying to the outside. Mysterio then does a springboard Hurricane Rana to the outside. We get a lovely comedy type exchange exchange, with Mysterio being too quick for Parker. Parker starts strutting. Conan rolls through an arm drag from the top, gets the body scissors on Parker, then manages to roll that into a double arm drag of sorts. Conan then sets for a razor's edge into a powerbomb before hitting a pair of German suplexes. Conan lifts Psychosis onto his shoulders. Mysterio climbs to the top and does a Hurricane Rana. Mysterio does a springboard planche to the outside. Conan catapults Mysterio across the ring. Mysterio clashes into a flying chair for his troubles. Parker and Psychosis go for dueling topes to the outside, but both eat a steel chair. Mysterio then does a somersault splash for Psychosis, who's sat on the chair on the outside. Conan does the tope, and the pair get counted out. Tom, what do you think of this?
Yeah, this was really good fun, this match. There was a good showing from all four participants, I thought. I didn't think there was anyone that particularly looked better than the others. However, if I was to say the one person that shined the most, I would say it was Rey Mysterio in this. Mainly because of his age. I find it's incredible that someone at 20 years old has got that much raw talent. And actually it seems to be pretty fine-tuned talent as well. It's not like he looks like a rookie and you think he's in there with old hands that sort of carry him through the match. The only thing I would say about him is that he might be a spot man rather than the type of guy that can work a fantastic match. However, that's not to take anything away from his performance in this match or anyone else's performance in this match. I thought everyone did their spot really well. I thought Parker did a good job for a masked heel. I thought that there were some nice spots in like the double chair when they dived through the middle ropes, and there was a double chair spot onto Psychosis and Parker. That was good. Psychosis took a hell of a lot of bumps. That guy is not going to last another 30 years. I don't know how old he is, but he's not going to last long if he takes bumps like that for the rest of his career. The finish normally would bother me, and the crowd seemed annoyed by it, the double count out. But I thought for a TV taping, that was an okay finish because they can save their best stuff for pay-per-view when these guys can really, really show us what they can do. So no, big thumbs up from me.
Chris?
All I've got to say is that top rope Doomsday Hurricane Rana. Oh my god, that was amazing. How they decided, yes, that's what we'll do. And got Psychosis to agree to take it. Well done. Conan is surprisingly agile, especially for the size of him, because he's quite bulky. When you see him, he's still sort of flipping around at the sort of same sort of level as Rey and Psychosis. You know, I was really impressed with this. Again, check it out. It's a decent TV match. And if you've not seen Lucha before, or only seen little bits of it, this is a sort of another good place to start watching Lucha from.
Yeah, the same usual problems I occasionally have when it comes to, say, the perceived lack of selling when it comes to lucha style wrestling, but I think I'm kind of going to have to accept that to a point. But I thought, there were a number of spots in here that we can take away. You both mentioned a couple. I thought the razor's edge into the sit-out powerbomb was really nice from Conan too. And the bit where Mysterio does the drop toe hold and Psychosis just slides along the deck to the outside. That was really nice too. But yeah, some really nice action. And this didn't air on TV in its entirety. They kind of chopped it up a little bit. We got about, I think, 8 or 9 minutes of action. I suspect this was a lot longer at the live event itself. But that probably helped from a viewing point of view, in that they kind of just cut out some of the, I think what I call filler for a wrestling match for that kind of thing. And they left us with a very watchable, very enjoyable TV match. Right, we will now move on to our November to Remember show. Tom, open up with the results, and then I'll basically just hand everything over to you, and you can kind of help take us through the show.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So, for the results, first up, Donnie Allen fought the Broad Street Bully to a no contest, and Bubba Ray Dudley defeated the Broad Street Bully in a non-advertised match, which lasted a whole 15 seconds. Conan defeated Jason Knight, with Taz as special guest referee. Stevie Richards defeated El Puerto Riqueño. The Pitbulls defeated the Eliminators. Rey Mysterio defeated Psychosis. The Sandman and Too Cold Scorpio defeated the Public Enemy for the tag team titles. Bill Alfonso defeated Todd Gordon. Mikey Whipwreck defeated Superstar Steve Austin. Sabu defeated Hack Myers, and Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer defeated Raven and Cactus Jack. So, let's go through the matches, and as you say, Bob, I'll lead with the.
Should we do some opening comments first?
Oh, sure, yeah. Why not? So, Bob, you can lead on this one.
Okay. Yeah, I of all of the live events we've done this year in full, Chris, you've done a few. I think Tommy, you might have done one or two. I would say this was probably my favourite by some distance. In the sense that, I mean, well, there's about, you ran through about 8 or 9 matches on this card, which was longer than usual, but a lot of the live events before we'll have one wrestling match, a title match, and another one. We got about 5 really good matches that were all, significant in length. I think there were 5 matches that ran over 9 minutes. And they all had a lot of things going for them. And even the stuff that didn't was pretty entertaining. And I also think there's a real hidden, I wouldn't say hidden gem, but probably in a funny kind of way, probably one of my favourite ECW matches of the year was on this card.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think from the ECW events that I've seen this year, this was definitely my favourite. And it had so much in it that you would look at and think, wow, they can really build on this, and the company can really get a real cannonball rolling with a couple of things here, which we'll go on to talk about, so I won't spoil that now. But I enjoyed it from start to finish. There were only a couple of minor things that I had that I think they could have done differently, but that's not too much, of a negative when you think about a 2 hours, 40 minutes, the pay-per-view in total. And as you say, 4 or 5 really good matches. You can't complain as a wrestling fan when watching different kinds of matches as well. There was some that was very wrestling heavy. There was some that had practically no wrestling in at all. But that's what you expect from ECW, and I think we're all fine with that. And if you've watched this product more than once, you'd be fine with it too. So yeah.
I'll tell a quick line. There was actually 6 matches over 10 minutes. Just looking at that card in full. So yeah, I think I wouldn't say a wrestling heavy show, but a more balanced ECW show than you perhaps be accustomed to.
It definitely had the most. It was the most pay-per-view like show they've done this year. If you think of it as, they've put on a whole event of all good matches, whereas it didn't have, for argument's sake, the rotten versus rotten blood match for the sake of we need to wheel out something super hardcore. It didn't have the token, let's do a Guerrero versus Malenko because we need to have a token 20-minute wrestling match. It was a full card, as if, as they said last month, they're looking at going into pay-per-view with this sort of a card and this sort of a show. You could make it a pay-per-view show more than some of the stuff we've seen earlier this year.
Yeah, this is easily, I would say, the most balanced card we've seen. Easily the most watchable event from start to finish. A lot of the others, I think, we've gone through and gone, well, this will chop up into a couple of episodes of Hardcore TV quite nicely, but as an overall watch, it doesn't hold up. This one, I think, certainly does.
Yeah, I totally would agree, and I think that's the style that ECW promote, is that sort of hacked up approach of the product is presented as almost like a scrapbook of these crazy moments that you're getting a little bit of an insight into this one, a little bit of insight into that one. Whereas this, as a show, I completely agree with you both. It flowed really well, and it just shows that the company is evolving. And they're learning their craft, and they're learning how to present a product, and this is a pay-per-view. It shouldn't be presented as a bit, patchy sort of crazy.
Not a pay-per-view, Tom. Just a live event and a video. Well, don't forget that.
Well, I consider it a pay-per-view because I thought it was that good. But anyway, no, I take your point. So we'll give it a thumbs up, I think. After we go through all the matches, we'll give it a proper overall review and talk about a score out of 10 as well. So, should we crack on with the matches?
Let's do it. Well, we haven't got much to discuss in the first 4, but yeah, we'll certainly go through them.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get through them relatively quickly then.
The fans mocking Bubba Ray. Remember, the 1 hour time limit will be strictly enforced. That is for the introductions, not the match. Big Dick makes Bubba Ray take the microphone. He's a little apprehensive about public speaking.
Good evening, fine people of Philadelphia.
say it. I love this part. I love it. Well, he was on a roll. He was so close. Poor Bubba Ray. Oh, he's really nervous now. He's frustrated. Big dicks up. Bubba Ray just clocked Donnie Allen.
So, first up was advertised as Broad Street Bully versus Donnie Allen, which swiftly turned into Bubba Ray just taking over, really. So, I mean, I guess the things to talk about here, the way it started, both fighters were in the ring and were introduced to the special ring announcer, Bubba Ray Dudley, sporting a fine jacket and holding a black cane. Bubba builds the show and says, let's get ready to rut, and didn't get any further. Bubba attacks Donnie, and Bully also takes a Bubba bomb for his troubles. Bubba gets a 3 count for this unadvertised match. So I didn't have a problem with this, and I guess we'll sort of, rattle through this quite quickly. I didn't have a problem with it. I think the one thing to talk about here is that Bubba Ray is actually very talented. I think he's got a lot in his game. He certainly can work, and he can certainly talk. I don't know if the character they've given him has got legs. I'm not sure how much they can do with it, but there's certainly he's certainly got talent that I think they can work on as time goes by. Chris, what did you make of this thing?
I liked it as a show beginning. It was very ECW, and yet still sort of very grown up and sort of a proper show beginning, with having Bubba come out sort of, because there was the whole thing of him being the special announcer for the event.
The best part of all this was that he was the ring announcer and he had a 1 hour time limit. That was they'd asked that on the TV before. I thought that was quite a nice touch.
And it's good to actually see Bubba in the ring, because obviously we've seen dancers within the ring, we've seen Big Dick and in the ring as well. So to see that Bubba can work as well sort of makes me think that the Dudley Boys as a whole will be something to look forward to seeing what they do with.
Yeah, I'd agree. And the tools are there, and it's just a case of sort of putting them to work in the right way, I think. Bob, any thoughts?
I thought this was an absolute riot. This wouldn't work in the WWF, this wouldn't work in WCW, but from the minute he came out to the minute where he messed up the Let's Get Ready to Rumble bit, I thought this was brilliant. It was really well done. It's just like, you got Joey Styles on commentary and the crowd were like really willing him along, and he reels through, we'll play this from him, he runs through this spiel, and then he messes up the final line. You can feel the crowd go, oh, for fuck's sake, he's messed it up again. And it was really well done. As to whether he can work, I think let's let him wrestle some matches before we decide that, but the power bombs were quite nice. And yeah, a big tick for this segment. And it wasn't a match, it was a show opening segment that just involved Ray Dudley just powerbombing people. I'm very more than happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so up next we've got Conan versus Jason Knight with Taz as our special referee. Taz signals the start of the match and nails Jason. Conan hits a crucifix powerbomb for the 3 count, which the crowd seem to be pleased about. And that is the match in its entirety. So, Chris, what did you make of this one? Short and sweet, but any thoughts?
Conan, destroy.
Yeah, pretty spot on, Bob.
Yeah, nice little segment for the match. And yeah, another, I don't know that I would have done this now. I might have put this in, well, I suppose we needed Taz later on. I might have put this in as filler between one of the matches later on, but as a segment it was fine.
Yeah, agreed. So, moving on. Next up, we got Stevie Richards versus Pablo Marquez. Stevie greets a fan who gives him a Flock of Seagulls t-shirt as a gift. What else would you want for Christmas? And it's the blue meanie. Stevie invites him in. Pablo flies to the outside, taking out Richards to start the match. He hits a moonsault and then a flying dropkick from the top rope. Pablo flies through the middle rope to take out Meanie, but Richards brings him down to gain control. A Stevie bomb on Pablo. He hoists him up and drops him down on the top rope. Another Stevie bomb, and he sends Meanie up to the top rope, who misses a large moonsault. Pablo with a roll up for a 2 count. Stevie then hits a super kick and gets the 3 count for the win. Chaps, what did we make of this one? Chris, I'll go to you first.
It was a fun little match, you know, it was what you'd expect out of a Stevie Richards match. Wherever they found this Blue Meanie fellow from, I have no idea, but the fucking state of him. Whoever decided that Daisy Dukes in a cut-off t-shirt on a 300-pound man with blue hair is a good idea, I do not know.
Yeah, I don't think we want to know where they came up with the idea for that one either, because I think it would disturb us greatly. But I agree. I think that you could sense that the whole purpose of this match was just to introduce Blue Meanie to everyone and to link in with Stevie. Bob, what did you think?
Well, we had one match that never got started, 2 matches that were under 30 seconds each, and we got to 3 minutes here, so we're building into it. Yeah, this was fine. My main takeaway from the match, among other things, was I thought a lovely bit of camera work on the super kick, kind of got nice and low, and gave it I'm quite a big, when it comes to photography and framing wrestling. And I thought the cameraman did a really good job of getting the angle on that just right. The match itself was 3 minutes. The action was fine. It wasn't long enough to be any good, but yeah, no, perfectly acceptable.
So up next we have the Eliminators with Jason Knight versus the Pitbulls with Francine. Saturn and Pitbull 1 start the match. Saturn takes the upper hand, slamming Pitbull 1. Pitbull returns a slam, and Saturn unloads in the corner. Pitbull throws Saturn into the corner and unloads right back. Pitbull 2 tags in and drops an elbow for a 2 count. Cronus tags in and receives a power slam. Dragon suplex on Pitbull 2. Saturn's back in and delivers an impressive clothesline from the middle rope to the outside, and then delivers a moonsault to the outside. Cronus pulls out of a pin to continue the punishment on his opponent. Jason hits a cheap shot, and Pitbull 2 fights back, but flies himself into the ring post, falling outside the ring. Lots of blood pouring from his elbow after that one. Impressive high elbow from the top from Saturn for a 2 count. Hurricanrana from the top for another 2. Pitbull 2 delivers a powerbomb and a brawl breaks out between everybody. A good Tiger Bomb from Saturn on Pitbull 1. A guillotine from Pitbull 1 from the top, and Jason breaks up the count. Pitbulls continue taking control of the match, which eventually ends in a super bomb from the top rope for a 3 count and the win. Chaps, what did we make of this match? I thought this was good. I thought it was another positive match. It was, again, it was given a decent length. It wasn't too short, like the matches that preceded it, you could argue. I really, really like the total elimination finisher. I think we've seen it before from other teams somewhere. I can't put my finger on where, but I love that. And I think Saturn's a good talent. He's got some skills that I'd like to see them utilise more. Bob, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, really good. In terms of 2 tag teams that have got a look down, are all quite similar wrestlers, which I think helps in this case, in that they're all kind of power led, but they've got a little bit of, athleticism in amongst it. And given, the kind of action we're going to see later on, I think that we talk about ECW being a mix of styles. This is certainly part of it. The more kind of power based, muscular, not huge guys, but big on an ECW average. Yeah, really impressive. The tag team moonsault was quite nice. I agree with your assessment on Saturn, or I don't think anyone was particularly, I thought Cronus and the Pitbulls both held their own this match. We got more laser eyes from Joey Styles. There was a quick cut on one of them, and Joey, who theoretically is in the Eagle's Nest, says, that gash is at least 2 inches wide. I'm like, how the hell are you supposed to see that? But yeah, no, other than that, very good. The bit after the match with Jason kissing Francine was also quite nice. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, agreed. Chris?
It was a stiff tag match with both these boys not fucking about and throwing each other around. And, I do watch quite a bit of Japanese stuff here and there, and also watching AE stuff for Super Brawls. I do like a good stiff clothesline and a good stiff suplex in my tag team wrestling. So I will definitely take more of seeing these two beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah, I'd agree. You wouldn't have minded if this one went on for another 5 minutes just to see the sort of chaos that it was really. I agree with you. It was really hard hitting, and when everybody in the match puts in that shift and takes those bumps and everything is delivered so snugly. I always enjoy matches like that, even if the flow of the match is slightly off or whatever. I think when you could see they all put an absolute shift in, and agreed, boys, agreed. So moving on to the next match, we've got Psychosis versus Rey Mysterio Jr. in a Texas death match. The intros are delivered in English and Spanish, including the rules of the match. We have a fast start, and Rey delivers a Hurricanrana roll-up for a 3 count. Psychosis is up at a 5 count, and the match continues. Rey hits a Hurricanrana to the outside. He sets the rail up and tries to launch himself from the railings backwards, but fails. Psychosis takes control and hits a nice moonsault for a 3. Rey is up with 1 count remaining and looks hurt at this stage. Psychosis is back on the front foot and works on Rey in the corner. More offense, and Psychosis hits a powerbomb for another 3 count, which Rey gets up at 1 count remaining again. He gets a chair from the outside and throws it back. Psychosis hits an inverted senton for the 3, and Rey again gets up with only 1 count remaining. A DDT onto the chair, and a moonsault is hit, including the chair. And we have another 3 count, and Rey very gingerly gets up at 2. Psychosis works specifically on Rey's knee, and lands on the chair as Rey starts to make a comeback. Clothesline to the outside, and Rey soars with a slingshot moonsault into the crowd. Back outside the ring, and they move into the crowd once again. Rey delivers a huge Hurricanrana from the announcing platform, and gets another 3 count. Psychosis this time does not get up, and Rey Mysterio is announced as your winner. So, chaps, talking points on this one. Obviously, we've got the outcome of the match itself, but personally, I'm not a huge fan of the Texas death match as a stipulation. I find it repeats itself very quickly, and it's quite the structure of the match works quite linearly. In the you have a sort of faster count for when the opponent first goes down, and then it gets down to a 3 count. Then it's a 2, then it's a 1. In this case, it just started with Rey getting from 1 counts from the start, and eventually getting a comeback. I'm not a huge fan of the match, but that's not the match type. That's not to take away from the talent involved. Chris, what did you make of this one?
I concur with you, Tom, with the fact that I can't stand death matches. It's okay if you're doing it in the way that you have to beat them down so they can't answer the count, but the pin then not answer the count bit. I don't really like, I don't mind it if, say, it's Terry Funk and Cactus Jack, they've put him for a table, he then magically gets up at 8. But with the high-flying lucha style, it's not my sort of thing to have this as a death match. But you can't take away from the spots in this. Some of the things that these two were doing is absolutely amazing. The high flying, like the last bump with him going off the crow's nest, that is an amazing visual.
Yeah, I agree. It was amazing.
But then the walk back to the ring, 10 count, meh. Seeing a pin, 1, 2, 3, decisive, done, thank you very much, you're winner. It just takes away for it from me.
I know. You can imagine if that was the end to a sort of back and forth Falls Count Anywhere match, or even just a standard ECW rules match where the Falls Count Anywhere seems to come in half the time anyway. That would have been such a great way to finish it, because he could have stood on the stage and sort of turned to the crowd, and it would have been a real sort of celebratory moment when he actually had to trot on back to the ring. And I couldn't agree with you more on that. Bob, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, 3 for 3 on not being a deathmatch fan, in terms of, I think it was, I want to say Halloween Havoc 93, we got Cactus Jack against Vader in WCW rather. I remember watching that and thinking, man, this would have been a great match. He just got rid of the stipulation. And yeah, likewise with Psychosis, pinned Mysterio 4 times in this match and lost. That's like, I know it's a different match with different rules, but it's like, that doesn't really seem right, even though within the rules it makes sense. And I don't know, I've never particularly been a fan of the whole, you pin a guy, and then he's got 10 seconds to get back up, so he's just lost. That being said, the action was good as you'd expect. Apparently Mysterio's working with a bit of an injury. So, we'll take that. But the action was impressive. These two will have better matches. I don't know, maybe in Mexico, this kind of multi-pin format works. I know they do a lot more falls-based matches in Mexico, which maybe ties into this kind of thing. But I don't know that this is necessarily, gonna translate. Tommy, you got the post-match notes, to run through as well.
I've just got, that Jason Knight, clearly wants to manage Ray, and Ray responded rather quickly by saying no and attacking Jason after he got quite insulting. The Eliminators then attacked Ray, and 911 made the save with a big double chokeslam on the pair. I thought that was a nice segment, actually. I thought that it was believable that Ray wouldn't side with Jason and wouldn't go with him, because that just wouldn't make sense from the look of his character and from the way he is. And 911 and Ray make a really quirky team. Whether they'll actually run with it or not, and do anything with it after this, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's a great idea, really, long term. But it was a nice bit of fun. What did you make of that sort of after-match bit, Chris?
I thought it was a good visual to see Ray on 911 shoulders. Obviously 911 is a bit of a strange character for me, because he serves the purpose of coming down and being sort of justice and attacking people, but he just, sometimes he's a weapon for hire because he does Paul Heyman's bidding, and then sometimes he comes out as a sort of peacekeeper and sort of saviour of the good guy, as he did tonight. It's just one of those of, what is he and what's he meant to be, does confuse me at times with him. But, him coming down to help Ray worked so well.
Yeah, I agree. Bob, what did you make of it?
I mean, not a massively significant segment, but, a nice little bit of storyline progression. I wouldn't pair up Mysterio and 911 long term, but as a one-off match. Mysterio does the bulk of the legwork, 911 comes in, cleans house, they win. I think that would be fine as a mid-card match on a future show.
Yeah, absolutely. I think clearly the ECW fans just absolutely love getting a chokeslam, so a double chokeslam is never going to be turned away from the peeps in Philly. Okay, so moving on to the next match, we've got Sandman and Too Cold Scorpio versus Public Enemy for the World Tag Titles.
I think you'll find it's Too Gold Scorpio.
Oh, you're shining, Bob. You are shining with that one. Yeah, apologies. I missed the impressive graphic that ECW put on the screen to show that one, so I stand corrected. I am not going to refer to him as Too Gold, though, because that would get annoying. Introductions are done, and we have a dance-off, which everybody always loves to see. And first things first, I would say that Scorpio has got some serious moves. Too Cold and Sandman attack from behind once the Public Enemy are doing their dance moves. And then Enemy regain control, throwing their opponents to the outside, getting the block party going once again, which the crowd clearly enjoy. Sandman and Grunge are in the ring, and the match finally gets underway. Grunge takes control and throws Sandman to the outside. Scorpio hits a crossbody on Grunge, and Sandman drops an elbow. They all grab a chair, and we have a swing away on our hands. The four men battle in the ring, then all work their way to the outside. Grunge is busted open inside the ring as Scorpio works on him. A splash from the middle rope, and there's a 2 count on Scorpio. Sandman and Rock are still fighting on the outside. Sandman tags in and mocks the crowd. Sandman hits a shoulder breaker. The whole match seems to turn a tad chaotic and unorganised at this stage in terms of who's in the ring and who should be fighting who. The champs regain control again. And a powerbomb and a 2 count from Scorpio. And another. Sandman comes back in. Woman canes Flyboy to the head twice, which seems unnecessary, but she does it anyway. Sandman is backdropped onto the table on the outside of the ring, which doesn't break. Grunge is then dropped chest first through the table. A slingshot plancher from Flyboy to the outside. Grunge tags in, and Flyboy misses the drive-by, flattening Grunge. Sandman collapses sideways onto Grunge for the 3 count and retains the tag belts, winning himself a world title match as a result. Now, chaps, I will hand to you before giving my thoughts on this one, because I'd like to hear how you felt about it. So, Bob, let's start with you. What did you make of it?
Tom, did you miss in your notes that, well, I may have dreamt this, but there was a prosthetic hand involved in this, wasn't there?
I don't like to focus on prosthetic hands, so I chose to leave it out.
I'm just being factual. One of the guys went into the front row of the crowd and pulled the hand off one of the people in attendance and used it as a weapon.
He did use a fake hand and slapped him.
I thought that was really good.
Right. Okay.
In terms of the match, it was about what you'd expect in the. You know, I think we'll see better Public Enemy matches. Sandman is Sandman. 2 Gold. Scorpio is playing the kind of ECW all-rounder role very nicely. I don't think this match was necessarily anything special, but equally it was. I've seen far worse in ECW this year. One of the cane shots by a woman to, I think it was Johnny Grunge, looked absolutely horrendous. Caught him right on the back of the head. That didn't look fun at all. And then I think my favourite bit was probably after the match, because Sandman was out when he collapsed onto Grunge and, won the match, and Scorpio revived him with a can of beer, which I thought was quite nice as well. A mild thumbs up from me.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Chris, what about you?
It was what you'd expect from a Public Enemy match without a flaming table. Too Cold does what Too Cold does best. Sandman does what Sandman does, which is somehow pretend to be a wrestler in a drunken state. But, you know, he's good at it. I did like the beginning. I really did like the whole comedy part of the beginning with the dance off. I thought that was really, really well worked. For the story, for how the match goes with the fact that Sandman got the pin and how it forwarded on for the rest of the evening was the best option as well.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I do agree with you both in that it wasn't a terrible match, but I certainly don't think that it was good either. I've done the ECW show before and I've made no bones about saying my thoughts on Sandman. I think he's dead weight. I think I always think surely he'll improve or he'll do something to justify his sort of godlike status he seems to have with the crowd there. They love him. They absolutely love him. And I get that's because of him coming out and drinking his beers and smoking, and he's got woman as well. I appreciate it's quite a masculine sort of favourite character, bearing in mind probably 90% of the people in the crowd are blokes. But
there's also the thought that if you're in the crowd, you often wonder what would happen if someone with no wrestling experience like me got in the ring. And with Sandman, you get to find out. So, you know, there's that as well, in that he is kind of, people can vicariously live through him in the ring, and he can do a lot of crazy shit so you don't have to. I think there's that part of that as well. He's very relatable.
Yeah, I get that, but I also think that there's a different side to that coin when you look at someone like Mikey Whipwreck, who, you know, you look at and you go, he looks like a guy that shouldn't be in there with the people he's fighting because of how good he is and how quick he is and all that. I think because he's actually got talent. I don't think that Sandman's got any talent. That's my only problem. But I know what you're saying, Bob. He is very relatable to people in the crowd that are probably drinking beer and smoking as well. So yeah, I take your point. But the crowd clearly enjoyed this match as well. What do you chaps make of Sandman and 2 Gold as tag champs? Do you think it works? Do you think there's legs in that tag team? I actually thought they had good chemistry. Bob, what did you think?
Yeah, I don't know whether they. I mean, obviously we're going to discuss the Public Enemy thing at the end, and by no means the Public Enemy gone this time of recording, but. The change felt a little bit abrupt when they did it at the event at the end of October, and I wonder whether it was a case of we need to get the belts off of these guys quickly so that we can be free to let them go, because obviously, you know, we don't know when we're going to be taping next. 2 Gold, Scorpio and Sandman, it's an odd combination when you've got the Pitbulls and the Eliminators wrestling such a good match earlier in the show. But yeah, in the short term it makes sense, but I don't expect them to be tag champions come, say, end of January. I think this is just a pairing for convenience.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Chris, anything else to add?
No, I think it is just a stopgap to give Sandman something to do, and also sort of just in case the enemy do go, there's no chance of them disappearing with your belts.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. So, moving on next, we have Bill Alfonso versus Todd Gordon, with Beulah McGillicuddy as the special referee. Beulah walks out and is followed by Alfonso. Todd Gordon enters the arena and is wearing a classic 90s shell suit that any man would be proud to wear in a street fight. Alfonso attacks from the ring apron and lays into Gordon in amongst the fans. Alfonso then decides to deck Beulah. Gordon goes to work and we have clearly got no referee. Todd lays the punches in and the crowd chants, "We want blood." Gordon hops up from the bottom rope and stomps on Fonzie. A low blow later and Fonzie has gained control of the match. Fonzie clearly blades himself on camera and the crowd get exactly what they asked for. Alfonso seemingly can't open his left eye as Gordon smacks him around some more. Back in the ring and Todd has a frying pan. Fonzie takes it but receives a low blow. A pan to the face, but no one is there to count the pin. Taz runs in to make the 3 count, which clearly pleases the fans, but he doesn't make the 3 count. After 2, he stands, decks Gordon, and puts Fonzie on top of him for the 3 count and the win. So the match was the match. There was something that happened after the match, which I think we'll talk about separately. But in terms of these aren't 2 professionals, certainly not in-ring professionals anyway. I don't think anyone expected this to be a classic, and I think that it was probably as good as anyone thought that it could be. I think. What did you two make of it, Chris? Let's start with you.
Other than the fact it was for story and it progressed the story, and obviously the whole Taz thing afterwards, but there was no need for this to have as much time as it had. It was an absolute shower of shite, but, you know, it served a purpose. In a story, it just didn't need to be as long.
Yeah, I guess I can see what you're saying. I'm just thinking because of the time and effort that the company have put into Alfonso as arguably their top heel, for him to be in a match, I guess if they were to make it a minute or 2 even, I'm not sure if that would have been sort of justice. I'm not sure. Bob, what do you make of that? The sort of the timing of the match and also just, you know, overall thoughts?
Yeah, it went 7 minutes. I was probably there at about 3 or 4 thinking, yeah, I've probably got my fill now. That being said, I quite enjoyed it. I mean, yeah, I agree with Chris. It felt a bit long, but equally it didn't drag. I just felt like it could have been more effective if it had been a bit shorter. But Alfonso's really good. Todd Gordon is, you know, I mean, that's the thing. And we'll come to, you know, when we kind of discuss ECW as a whole, probably on next month's show in terms of their kind of year in review type thing. I think that we're in front of a crowd that doesn't like to boo people. Alfonso is one of those guys they will boo on command. So it's, you know, in that sense it was fine. Yeah, decent match, a bit long. But no, I wasn't, yeah, again, you know, as I mentioned in the TV review, their treatment of women continues to be abhorrent, but I get the feeling that's just the environment. Yeah, I was fine with this, but I do agree with Chris, probably about 2 or 3 minutes too long.
Has just made the 3 count. He's raising Alfonso's head.
You could chant his fucking name all night, he ain't coming. Not one card, not one letter, not one phone call.
What are you talking about?
Tommy Dreamer nearly gets his fingers busted off his hand. Everybody's crying the blues about Tommy Dreamer. Terry Funk right in this building. Everybody's crying the blues about the legend Terry Funk.
hell is going on here?
And then the Almighty, your God, the King himself, Sabu, nearly gets his neck snapped in half by Chris Benoit, and everybody's pissing and fucking moaning about fucking Sabu.
What's the point?
What about me?
What about him? Look at my man Tom now, baby.
Shut up!
I'll beat Todd Gordon. Look at him.
Fuck Taz, right? No, fuck you. Okay? And then my buddy Paul Heyman.
Hey, wait a minute.
My buddy Paul Heyman. Hey, Taz, take your time, brother. Don't worry. You'll get back in the ring real soon. You'll get back to work real soon. Yeah, but see, Paul, the problem lies here. My father ain't some fat lawyer that pays my way through.
Hey, now, wait a minute.
I gotta pay my fucking bills. Who cares about my family? Who cares about my house? Who cares about my
You do?
I'll tell you who cares about me, and that's Bill Alfonso.
No!
Bill Alfonso
Every day.
wants to put food on my table. Bill Alfonso wants to put money in my pocket.
Choke on that food.
So, wait.
Hey, leave him alone!
The way I see it, you people don't care about me. You don't care about Bill Alfonso, so we don't give a flying fuck about you.
Okay, so I alluded to this, but after the match, we were treated to a promo from Taz, who openly berated the crowd and moaned about not getting cards from everyone in the audience when he was injured. Taz laid into everyone and says that the only person who does care about him is Bill Alfonso. Taz almost got into a fight with a fan in the front row who tried to jump over the rail, literally. And I would say that it was nuclear heat for the company's new number 2 heel, Fonzie, of course, being number 1, in my opinion. So I thought this promo was fantastic, boys. I thought that Taz was so comfortable in the position of giving it. He looked a lot more natural in that heel role. The language helped, I think, because you got the impression that he was really bitter, really pissed off, and really had enough. And you know, if you want to get people to hate him immediately, who better to put him with than Fonzie? I think Taz showed that he's got a lot of talent here on the microphone in that role. And I just think it's Taz's sort of push was cut short when he had that horrible injury. But I think this is a really, really clever way to keep that momentum going, but in a different direction as a heel. Because as I say, I think he looks more natural in that role. So, Bob, thoughts?
In total agreement. As I said a minute ago, this isn't a crowd that want to boo very many people. ECW is a promotion that could do with a genuine heel, and if it means pairing them with Bill Alfonso, then so be it. I assume Taz is fit now, because I think there's a very quick case for getting him in the ring now. This angle has taken place, the kind of thing next month where Todd Gordon will pick his guy to go off against Bill Alfonso's bloke. That probably makes most sense. A very good promo, very believable. Like a company that needs, an in-ring heel that I don't have many of. This was really good and a really significant moment.
Yeah, good stuff. Chris, over to you.
Completely agree with Bob. Obviously, the easy thing is to do next month Taz versus some ECW guy, maybe the Shah, maybe 911, as Todd Gordon's ECW guy. Put something on the stakes, if Taz wins, Alfonso stays, Todd loses his job, that sort of thing. You've got an instant news story going forward. Also, with the whole of that promo, you could tell as that was coming out of his mouth that was real bitterness. That it was a case of, yeah, you didn't fucking give a shit when I was hurt. These other guys you gave a shit about, but you didn't give a shit about me. So fuck you.
Yeah, it was great, wasn't it? When he mentioned Tommy Dreamer almost getting his fingers busted off his hand, and you're all crying and sending him cards and saying we miss you, Tommy. And it really, I don't know if it was a shoot, as you say, or whether it was written. But either way, it felt like a shoot, didn't it?
How he said it and how it came across, there was a level of reality behind it, which you don't always get with those sort of promos.
And I think as well on the sidebar, they're going to need a new opponent for Mikey Whipwreck fairly soon. Assuming Taz is ready to get back in the ring, I think that's a very logical matchup.
Okay, up next we have Sandman versus Mikey Whipwreck for the World Heavyweight title. Or do we? So before Sandman can actually have his world title match, on the way to the ring, he's attacked by Steve Austin in the aisle. Austin completely takes Sandman out, and for whatever logic you wish to apply, gets the title shot against Mikey Whipwreck himself. So, up next we have Mikey Whipwreck versus Steve Austin for the World Heavyweight title. A very bitter Austin tells Mikey on the microphone, "Tonight you're Eric Bischoff." Not a good start. Austin lunges at Mikey and smacks him around on the outside of the ring. He delivers a number of shots and elbows and some stiff boots to follow. Mikey's whipped into the guardrail. The crowd chants for Hogan. Austin replies with a big boot and a leg drop. "Brother." Mikey is dropped onto the guardrail. Mikey receives a whip and throws Austin into the rail himself on a reversal. Mikey attempts a comeback, but Austin delivers the stun gun onto the top rope for a 2 count. Mikey rolls Austin up after a sunset flip and holds his tights for the 3 count. Austin attacks Mikey after the match before heading to the back in a fit of rage. So, this match, not the one that was advertised, boys. There's a few talking points. I think it's clear that Steve Austin they're onto something with him, in my opinion. What that something is, I can't quite put my finger on. But a bit like Taz, you get the impression that he really is hacked off. And I think we can probably take a guess as to why that is. I don't know if the character that he's got at this stage is going to work to suit that sort of anger that he's got. Maybe it's the look. I'm not quite sure. Something's not quite right there. But there is something to be worked upon. There was next to no wrestling in this match, really, and Mikey took an absolute pounding from start to finish, really. But it wasn't that long, and I think it served the purpose of pushing whatever it is that they're pushing with Steve Austin. So, Bob, what did you make of it?
Yeah, a few notes first up. The Sandman attack afterwards, a couple of paramedics came out and he did a stretcher job. I believe that's a throwback to basically after the fire at the live at the end of November, they had a kind of review and a meeting over ECW standards. And one thing that they were kind of given a slap on the wrist for was a lack of medical staff. So I wonder whether that was a little kind of inside joke there. We also
the fact they called damage control as well.
Yeah, that too. We also got "You both suck dick" chants from the crowd. The Philadelphia crowd is forgiving as ever.
Bob. That was they chanted that a number of times throughout it, and I thought having not watched ECW for a couple of months, I thought it had just become a staple, and it was like just part of the show.
Yeah, no, that's probably fair. My name is Steve Austin, and tonight your name is Eric Bischoff. That was a really good line to open up the match. Yeah, you're right. There wasn't much wrestling in this match. I think the match was probably 4 or 5 minutes away from actually being something memorable or decent. I must admit, when Austin did the Hogan leg drop and big boot, I think the only thing that bit was missing was Mikey kicking out at 2 and hulking up. I think that would have sent the match right over the edge if for about 20-30 seconds Whipwreck would have hulked up and started nose selling. I think that was perfect. But other than that, nice match. But that's probably where the praise ends. And I don't particularly want to see the moon over Philadelphia again. Although that being said, although I'm not referencing his arse in this, but Austin, for a guy who's been injured for the last few months, physically looks in very good nick.
Yeah, he does. He's certainly been spending his time off down the gym. I would predict. Chris, what did you make of it?
I was just going to say the same as Bob just said about Austin looking in good shape. Obviously, it was one of the things that we said about when he first arrived a couple of months ago was how is he going to be when he comes back from this injury? And he looks like he's not missed a beat, you know. And also with Mikey winning on the roll-up, as I said last month, it's a way to keep Mikey the underdog, yet get wins on people. Because, you know, yes, he got the sneaky underdog roll-up with the grabbing tights win, but Mikey didn't look like, you know, the winner at the end of it, which is what you need for his character to keep him as the underdog and keep him as the sympathetic babyface that you're willing for him to win. So, you know, as a whole, it worked really, really well.
Yeah.
I think it was the perfect match in a story that both of them come out looking awesome out of it.
Yeah, I'd agree that there were no losers in this match, you know, in terms of their characters and how they looked after it. I'm just a bit curious on this one, chaps. You might be able to educate me. That Steve Austin, is this the first time we've seen him since his injury, or since he, you know, first appeared a few months ago?
Define seeing him. Yeah, I was going to say he's done a couple of promos, kind of backstage, kind of. On camera promos, did that Bischoff impression. He also came out at the start of the Sandman Mikey Whipwreck ladder match, where Mikey won the title. Called woman a cheap $5 whore, and then walked off and said, "When I'm ready, I will face whoever wins this match." And so this was that basically.
Right. Okay. So he's sort of working his way into it a little bit, because it's for me as only just watching this and not too much TV this month. I just thought I can see that the roots are there for something, you know, for a really good heel character. It didn't seem quite defined for me at this stage, but maybe that's intentional, because he's meant to just be off the rails and unpredictable. Okay, good stuff. So moving on next, we've got Sabu versus Hack Myers. Paulie introduces us to Sabu. We get underway, and Sabu gets to work on Myers' left leg immediately. An awkward snapmare is followed by a slingshot leg kick for a 2 count only. Sabu delivers a DDT. He slingshots it back into Myers. Another 2 count. He works his arm, and then another slingshot for another 2. He gives a splash into the corner, but Myers delivers a power slam for a 2 count. Myers delivers the coup de grace, but can't get the pin thanks to Paulie, which the referee does not see. Sabu comes back and lands a guillotine leg drop. A nice spinning DDT plants Myers. Another couple of 2 counts. Sabu flies to the outside for a hurricanrana on the floor. Sabu flies at Myers on the rail from a chair. Sabu leaps from the top rope, which Myers turns into a powerbomb. A standing suplex from Myers. A victory roll from the top for a 2 count for Sabu. Myers grabs a chair with a fan's jacket still attached to it and smacks Sabu in the head with a jacket for extra impact. Myers continues his offense, but lands face first onto a chair. Sabu gives the crowd exactly what they want by throwing himself and Myers through a table on the outside. Back in the ring, Sabu hits an atomic Arabian facebuster with a chair for the 3 count and the win. So, Sabu is back, boys. I don't think he's changed very much, and I think that's probably a good thing, because the fact that he hadn't changed when he was down at WCW is why he's back.
I disagree with that, but carry on, Tom.
Oh, okay, right. Personally, I didn't see a lot here that I hadn't seen before, but again, that might be because of the amount of Sabu that you've seen it over me. However, I thought this was a good match. I thought it had a really nice flow to it. And I thought that previously, when I have watched Sabu, I have thought to myself he might be a spot worker. Rather than a good in-ring sort of technician type guy. But I thought he was better here. So perhaps he has improved. But that was my thought. And Hack Myers is over with the crowd, and the crowd enjoy watching him, whoever he's fighting. So I would say overall, in my opinion, it was a successful return for Sabu. But Chris, what did you make of it?
I actually thought it was quite sloppy from Sabu, actually. he seemed to be misjudging lots of his jumps, slipping on the ropes at times.
Hasn't he always done that though? Because I've always thought that his style was a little bit sort of chaotic and a bit sloppy.
It does suit the character.
It was a little bit more sloppy than before. I thought it was.
Okay.
It just, he did his usual good stuff. The top rope flip leg drops and the Arabian facebuster, and putting himself for a table. He did the Sabu greatest hits. But, it's just one of those of, Sabu's here and he's doing what Sabu does. We've seen it before. It's just one of those, I think with Sabu, he is, as I've said before, with the violence for ECW, you get to that point of, well, I've seen it now. What are you going to do now? Like we've said last month, me and Del were going on about how the flaming table wasn't used properly because, it was literally just a spot in something. There, we're seeing a flaming table. What are you going to do now? Sabu is the humanized version of that, where everything he does, we've seen. We've seen him put himself for a table. We've seen him do the sort of table, the triple jump moonsaults and things like that. I think because he does it all the time, and it sort of hurts the character that's all he is.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I mean, one thing I would say, perhaps in contrary to that, is I often judge my opinion on how a crowd reacts to a match, or how they react to one person in the match. And I thought that the crowd seemed to really enjoy this, and whether that's just because he's an ECW favourite rather than actually him putting in a good performance, I don't know. But the crowd really seemed to appreciate him being there. So you make some really valid points, but I think that's also a fair thing to sort of challenge it with, is to say, well, sometimes I think the company would be happy if when Sabu came backstage saying, well, the crowd, were eating that up out of the palm of your hand. I mean, certainly that's the impression I got. So Bob, what about you? What did you make of it?
Yeah, we seem to have a mixed bag of opinions here. I thought this was really, really good. I've got attached from a number of different angles. I mean, in terms of Sabu on his return, I think, Dave Meltzer, when he was writing about Sabu's return in one of the Observers this month, said, it might have even been last month actually, prior to his return, just talking about Sabu. And he said that one thing that Paul Heyman had managed to do was to trick people into believing Sabu was the best wrestler in the world, which is patently false. And I think one of the things that kind of fueled that opinion was that Sabu was getting all these great ratings off of these ludicrously fast-paced matches that involved a shitload of high spots that were nuts. Let's not undersell them, but in terms of the building blocks, a wrestling match weren't all there. Goes to WCW, kind of as the Sabu we'd recognise from ECW, and as we noted in the news at the top, gets a lot of criticism for a number of things. That list at the top was by no means exhaustive. And then he came in here, and I thought, to me, and I think you two guys seem to disagree on one level or another. I thought, to me, showed a different pace in that this match went 13 minutes. I felt like he was more considered in his spots. We still got the big spots. We still got as Chris quite brilliantly called it, the triple jump moonsault spot. I do wish he was actually in an actual triple jump, but anyway, that's slightly different. But we got the moonsault spot off the chair over the top through the table. The kind of the big finish, which is kind of the front flip off the turnbuckle with a chair, was excellent. But a better paced Sabu match I've never seen. And the other thing I thought they did a tremendous job of here was just Hack Myers. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's been an opening match act in ECW for as long as I can remember. Gets put in maybe not the semi-main, perhaps the cool-down match in the middle. But they made him look really, really good here. And Paul Heyman, even before the match, but certainly after, they were both kind of showing respect to him. I don't know that I've enjoyed many ECW matches this year more than this one, for a number of reasons. The style of wrestling I enjoy is probably a little bit different in terms of, I think objectively I perhaps wouldn't say this is the second best ECW match this year. But subjectively, I think this is probably my second favourite ECW match behind Benoit and Al Snow.
Wow, okay, high praise indeed. I mean, I know what you mean though, that there is something to be said for what you think would be the best match and what you consider to be your favourite match. So I do take that point. And chaps, what do we think of Sabu like here? I mean, this is a one night deal as I understand it.
Tom and Chris, any follow up on what I said there before we move on?
I get what you're saying, with what you like in ECW and even what you like in a match. I think Sabu as a whole is a very subjective type of act. You're either gonna be really into, oh, look at what he's doing, isn't that amazing? Or you're gonna see it as, and I'm not trying to sort of belittle him, but how I see it is, he is one of the problems of the things with ECW where it is, and now what are you going to do?
I don't think this was that, though. I don't think this was that. I don't know that there was any, I feel like Sabu got a lot more out of the crowd by doing the same amount over a longer period of time. There's more time between each spots. And equally, like I said, this match went 13 minutes. Hackmeyer's got, more than his fair share of offense in. Very even match, a very un-Sabu-like match, I would say, as well. And I think that showed in the crowd reception too, and I think they did a tremendous job getting Hackmeyer's over by the end of it. A guy that, he lost clean as a sheet, but he was very competitive.
Yeah, I would concur more on the side of Bob's thinking. I think the trick, one thing that you touched on, Bob, I thought was really a really good point, was, that Paul Heyman has led us to believe that Sabu is the world's greatest wrestler. I think, in all honesty, Paul Heyman has sort of, he's done such a good job that the ECW crowd consider the card that they are seeing to be the best roster and best, it's the best card they've seen. He does so well to hype these things up. And to sort of put these guys on a pedestal. But that's not to take away from the talent of a lot of them. And you could argue, say all of them, because, there's no smoke without fire. But I thought that I did think this match flowed better than the usual Sabu match. And I think that's where I was coming from when I said that, it didn't feel like a spot fest. It felt like a proper match. And I think that's probably what you were alluding to, Bob, when you said it sort of had an extra few minutes involved, and Hackmeyer's was given enough chance to be put over as well. So no, I thought it was good. So I guess we'll just have to sort of agree to disagree on that.
And two guys of very different sizes whose styles I would say meshed slightly better than I would have expected. I know big guy, small guy can work, but sometimes, you often get big guy who's, big but doesn't have enough power or enough mobility, and the small guy who isn't big enough to be believable. I thought, whether that was true or not, both guys did really well to not, to cover for that fact too. But yeah, as I say, maybe I'm overpraising this match, but I really enjoyed it. Do you want to discuss Sabu, Tom? Sorry, I know I cut you off.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I was just letting you know if you guys had anything else to say. But yeah, I was just going to touch on Sabu. Obviously he's had his very, very short stint down at WCW. And I'd just like to get your thoughts on what we see as his future. I think this is a one-night deal for Sabu. So I think, unless I'm completely reading this the wrong way, I think we know that he's going to come back to ECW. I think I certainly thought when he went to WCW that it was a mistake. I think that's been proven. But what do we think of the learnings that Sabu, ECW, and to an extent, not that it's really relevant to this podcast, WCW can take from his move down there? And what can they take from that to apply moving forwards? Chris?
I think we'll sort of hit them on it in a row. Obviously, the easiest one here is the WCW. They may now look at it as once bitten, twice shy at any of the ECW talent on the basis of, you know...
It is worth saying that they are very happy with Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko. Not that we should necessarily group them all in as the four guys that came out of ECW. Benoit, Guerrero and Malenko certainly have a track record of work outside of there as well. But yeah, if we are going to take those as a quartet, ECW are very happy with the other three of them, particularly Guerrero and Benoit now, who's in the Four Horsemen.
See, the thing is, when you look at Benoit, Guerrero and Malenko, they are more, you know, they've worked in Japan, you know they've worked in Mexico, whereas Sabu is more of an ECW.
Sabu's worked Japan.
I know he has been out in Japan, but, you know, he is more known as ECW than the rest of his worldly adventures. I think WCW may look at any of the people that are more ECW creations, as to say a Taz, a Tommy Dreamer, a Mikey Whipwreck, so people like that of ilk, that they may go, can they do as they're told for TV shows? Can they, you know, turn up on time? Can they keep to their time cues? Will they stay in the ring and do as we expect them to do? Are they going to be a bit more cautious now on giving these guys chances?
Well, I'm sorry to keep cutting you off, Chris, but I mean, they have also offered the Public Enemy a deal this month as well. I can't disagree with your rationale, but the early evidence is they may be alright with it. I think that I don't know that. I think they might. Honestly, from a WCW perspective, Chris, I'll let you carry on and say, I honestly don't think they'll give a fuck. I think they'll just go, yeah, he wasn't good enough, for all the reasons that we think. He's a small time worker and that's it. I honestly don't think WCW would have looked at him and thought, you know, when he left the door, God, we let someone go there that we might later live to regret. I think they'll just go, fuck it, didn't work. Forget about him. That's just me on WCW front. Carry on, Chris.
As you said, that might be how they're looking at it. Him, for Sabu himself, I think for America, he needs ECW. Because if he can't sort of live in the boundaries of WCW, he has got not a chance going to the WWF. Vince will not take any of his shit. You know, that would seriously not be accepted there, and he would probably be taken to wrestling court on that sort of behaviour. So, other than maybe, you know, spending a bit more time in Japan and maybe splitting his time between New Japan and ECW, I think that's pretty much now where he's going to have to make his money.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, with both of you on individual points. I think that the one thing that confuses for me is with WCW, I was just thinking to myself, what did they expect? Like, when they took Sabu on, what did they think that he was going to give them that he didn't give them? Because he basically took the Sabu act and did it in WCW. Now, whether they thought they saw the talent that they could sort of tweak it slightly and calm him down and, you know, do most of his work in the ring, I don't see how that's possible. Because
I mean, I suppose there is a point, if you're giving a guy time cues and he's not meeting them, that's not something that Sabu's ever going to have had an issue with in ECW. And also, yeah, I mean, I guess you expect a wild card, but equally, you know, you probably think, well, look, we're giving you instructions. We expect you to follow them to a point. I mean, yeah, I know what you mean, Tom, though. You picked up a rebellious type act and then you've kind of got a bit confused when he started rebelling. Like, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, and I just get the impression that if let's say they'd given him 6 months or, you know, as an extension, a year, and they've gone, look, we've tried and we've tried and we've tried. I just get the impression they asked him, he said no, and they went, well, fuck you then, you're going back.
And for what it's worth, he did only sign a 90-day contract and it did just expire. That's basically the beginning and end of it. It's not a case of he had a big long contract and they cut it short or anything like that. He went in for 90 days, as did the other three actually. Although given what they're doing with the other three, I can't imagine they'll they'll not renew those. But yeah, it was a 90-day deal, and they got to the end of it, and they didn't want to bring him back.
Okay. So, next we will move on to our main event, which is Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer versus Cactus Jack and Raven. Cactus and Raven come to the ring, and Cactus is wearing a Dungeon of Doom t-shirt, which is amazing for so many reasons.
I want one.
I'd get two. I'll wear them at the same time. I thought that was so funny, so cool, and just, I'll stop praising Cactus Jack that much.
To be clear, when we say Dungeon of Doom t-shirt, this was a t-shirt with cartoon drawings of Taskmaster, Zodiac, the Shark. It wasn't just like a Dungeon of Doom written on it. It was all four, like the four main Dungeon of Doom acts kind of drawn on. It was superb.
Yeah, and I just got the impression that Cactus had done it. I'm sure this isn't what happened, but I got the impression that he was backstage drawing it before the match. And I just think his character is just amazing, and I just think that's so funny to do something like that. And you know, if that was in the WWF marketing machine, I bet they'd make that t-shirt, and you bet your bottom dollar there'd be a lot of people that would wear it as well. Unfortunately, ECW don't have the money to do that. But anyway, moving past the Dungeon of Doom t-shirt, Dreamer and Funk take the upper hand initially in the fight as it moves to the outside. They brawl on the floor, and Funk whacks a chair across Cactus's head before brilliantly throwing it into the ring and smacking Raven directly on the back of his. The crowd love that. Stevie Richards is out to assist Raven as Funk empties a trash can into the ring with all sorts of goods on show. We see a speed limit sign used, and Funk and Dreamer wheel Stevie into the ring post while he sits inside a shopping trolley. Dreamer, in one of the most awkward and painful spots I think I remember seeing in ECW, takes a VCR machine from the audience and bounces it off Raven's head. I say bounce it because he hits him with it, and it literally bounced off his head, and it's made of metal. It was horrible to watch, but weirdly funny and amusing. Funk lays into Cactus with a snow shovel. Yep, this is ECW. The VCR is then officially broken over Raven's head, and we have complete chaos on our hands. Golf clubs, cheese graters, and a toilet seat. A chair is then used, which, to be honest, seems slightly dull by this point. Raven is heavily bleeding from his head. Cactus stabs away at Funk's arm, and Dreamer hits a DDT. Raven then spits on Dreamer and hits a DDT of his own. Dreamer attempts to come back, but to no avail. Cactus then reveals his second t-shirt, which says, "Forgive me, Uncle Eric," and has, again, a drawn image of Eric Bischoff on the front of it. Again, amazing. Terry Funk's now bleeding, as is Dreamer, and it's not long before Cactus is as well. Tommy lifts the Bischoff shirt onto Jack's face and pummels Eric in his face. He then hits Eric very hard in the head with a steel chair. Cactus hits Funk with a double-arm DDT onto the chair. This chaos continues, but there is no referee to make the 3 count when it's needed. Taz and Fonzie hit the ring and put the boots to Funk. The referee finally awakens, and Tommy hits 2 DDTs and a pile driver on Raven. Cactus distracts Tommy, and Funk gets the pin on Raven instead. Your winners, Tommy Dreamer and Terry Funk. So that is, in my opinion, a very good main event, a very enjoyable main event. And I think those types of matches, they can be pretty all over the place, not really have much flow to them, and really feel disjointed. But I thought this was a lot of fun, and I really, really enjoyed this. I won't break it down too much at this stage. I'll go over to you two for your thoughts. So, Chris?
It was surprisingly violent on the fact of how I expected it to go, with Jack doing sort of for the whole month going into this, with him doing the old wrestling and like the super non-extreme stuff. I was really expecting him to sort of pull that out of the bag, and to see this fucking shitstorm of violence was great. You know, the snow shovel, golf clubs, and the video player, you know, that's one way of getting that video back out of the video player that got stuck. Is bashing on the head.
The thing is, as well, someone has actually brought that to the arena, and I just think that's amazing. Like, you know, they have security at the door. What's that? What's that in your pocket? It's a VCR. Oh yeah, in you go. Yeah, all right.
Bring it in.
Yeah.
You know, it's that sort of. It was ECW extreme style hardcore at its best, and done by 4 of the best people in that style. And as a feud end, well, if it does end, it may still carry on, but as a culmination of what's been going on in ECW TV and other shows for the past 6 or 7 months, the Tommy and Raven thing that's been going, and then to have Cactus being brought in, it just worked so well.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. 2 for 2. Bob?
Well, I suppose if you are going to create some sort of like bootleg video of the show, one way to do it would be to bring a literal VCR into the building, and then some sort of recording equipment as well. I wasn't quite as high on this match as you two. That's not to say I didn't like it. It just felt really sluggish. I think, say, the histrionics with Cactus Jack's 2 t-shirts, which was undeniably brilliant. I didn't love it. It was, it was just too slow. I mean, I guess it fits in that you're having this kind of like barroom type brawl. You're using whatever you can get your hands on. I just don't like that stuff. I don't particularly like watching people fight in a bar. I didn't particularly like this. It just didn't move quickly enough for me. Again, kind of flipping back to the match before. Objectively, I can tell it was pretty good. Subjectively, I wasn't all that keen on it.
Yeah, no, I think it is all relative with things like this, and also ECW is relative because I think everybody has their favourite type of match that you get in ECW. Because obviously we had the classics of Malenko and Guerrero a couple of months ago, and we've also had some howlers as well. But everyone's got their favourite type, and everyone's got their favourite guys. And I think me personally, Cactus Jack's he's certainly my top 3 workers in pro wrestling in the world at the moment, and I think that makes me biased. But I did enjoy it, and I felt that, I know you say it was a bit sluggish, Bob. I mean, it came in at 13 minutes, which wasn't, the longest match of the night. But I appreciate what you're saying in a match when there is actually no wrestling and there's not much of a story being told, when it's just random props being used. That can sometimes, leave you feeling like you're just seeing random spots and it's just a case of, what's next. But that's something that we've heard that term used quite a few times tonight, haven't we? So in terms of individual takeouts from this, I mean, the end was obviously done to continue the fact that Tommy Dreamer hasn't pinned Raven to this stage. I thought that was quite clever. And Cactus distracted him, so that continues their sort of feud. And that is something that has been going on for a long time, hasn't it, Bob? I'm not sure how long exactly, but is it that he's never pinned him?
Yeah, Raven arrived in January. We've had a few kind of close calls where Raven pinned him at one point, and then I think Drew did pin at one stage, and then Bill Alfonso came out and said that doesn't count for X reason. It's been going so long. I presume now we wait until Dreamer's chasing Raven for the ECW title. I would think that's probably the logical place to have that moment would be. We talked last month about ECW being on pay-per-view. If that's in a year's time, that's probably the logical main event, is that you go in, Raven as champion, Dreamer chasing, and that's where you have him finally pin Raven for the first time, win the title.
Yeah, I think that sounds like an absolute, it has to be the plan, you would think. And that will be a big payoff, because these guys have fought more times than I care to remember, and I don't even watch as much ECW as a lot of people, including you, don't. So yeah, Chris, any other thoughts on the match or any of the guys involved?
As you were saying, obviously, the whole Raven and Tommy thing will carry on. And to be fair, it's one of those feuds that I can do with more of the same. I look forward to seeing where we're going to go from this and see what's sort of going to come out next.
For what it's worth, I think Terry Funk's probably going away for a while. He only did this match as kind of a make weight for the fans after what happened at the show last month. I think Terry Funk's going to be taking some time off. So yeah, I imagine he will be leaving this program at this stage for what that's worth.
Right, yeah, and I think the R word was put about in terms of Funk, but I think by the look of him, he still looks good to go to me, and he's certainly not at any age where I expect it to happen anytime soon.
Funk was retiring in 1989 when he lost to Flair at Clash of the Champions 5.
Yeah, well
that
exactly.
didn't last.
Point made, yeah. Okay, so chaps, that was the main event. That was the show. So let's just get some overall thoughts on November to Remember 95. And a score rating out of 10, please. I know we've touched on a number of things at the moment, so let's just keep this as a high-level review. Chris, over to you first.
This, as said earlier on, is probably the best show of the year as a whole show. You know, it doesn't have match of the year contenders on here for, you know, what I've seen of the classic wrestling of ECW. But as a overall show and an overall event, I would say it's probably the best ECW have put out this year.
Okay, and a score out of 10?
Big nines. Big nines,
wow. Okay. Bob, over to you.
Yeah, you know, we do these scores. I think you know, I kind of do note this when we do the Clash. You know, it is probably on a slightly different scale, say to a full blow pay-per-view. But yeah, this is ECW variety at its best. You know, towards the end there, we had kind of some ranging opinions on kind of the styles that we liked and disliked. But I think there, you know, in that back 7 matches, there are 2 or 3 matches for just about every type of wrestling fan, like a proper variety show. I thought Sabu and Hackmars was really, really good. There's no bad thing on this show, really. I gave it 8.5.
Oh, I didn't realise we did halves. I think you're copping out a bit there, Bob, to be honest with you.
It's my show, mate. I make the rules. In fact, for that, I'm going to give it an 8.6. There we go.
Oh, do me a favour with your 8.6. Okay, well, I think we can go 3 for 3 on this being, you know, again, not having watched loads, but this is my favourite ECW show, start to finish. That includes all the hardcore TVs that I've watched and all the live events. The favourite one I've watched, I thought it flowed really well. I was never bored, and there wasn't a bad match in it, in my opinion. And when you compare that to some of the absolute dross, I should say, that WCW and WWF are putting out this year, I think there's a lot of credit to be given there.
I was going to say that this will, when we do our end of year review, end of year awards next month, because we do show of the year rather than pay per view of the year, I think this is going to win it. And that doesn't say a lot, and admittedly we've got Starrcade to come. I can't see In Your House 5 being all that special. Starrcade might get there. But yeah, other than that, this is the best 3 hours of one show I've watched this year, in terms of nothing objectionable. You know, I'd say 6, sorry to cut you off, Tom, but you know, just a number of really good matches. But yeah, in terms of an end of year awards, I expect this will win it unless Starrcade turns up next month.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess just to round off my review, I would give it a 9 as well. And I think the only reason why, or sorry, I should say, the way that it could have become a 10 would have been if there was a classic match on the card, which there wasn't, and that, you know, sort of defines what makes a card a 10 out of 10 rather than anything else.
I think if you'd have dropped the deathmatch stipulation in the Psychosis Ray match, I mean, that would have made it the Big 10.
It would have needed a bit longer as well. That went 11 minutes. And that wasn't all that close to being as good as their first match, I don't think. I don't know that you drop the stipulation that becomes an instant classic. Because equally, as we've spoken before, if you're gonna have a match better, you have to top the one you did before. Like if you have a match that's as good as the one before, it isn't quite seen to be as good as the one before because it's following it. So I think for those two to have had a classic, they'd have had to have gone a couple of levels above what they did. And given that Mysterio, I think, was carrying an injury, I don't know that the stipulation would have been it on its own.
Yeah, okay, and I guess I'll just conclude by saying that I would like Cactus Jack to open up his very own T-shirt store, and I will buy everything that he makes and puts out. So that wraps up the November to Remember 1995 review.
Hi fans, it's Cactus Jack. You know, today it's just Mick Foley speaking from the heart about the things that have gone on here the past several months, and I feel like somehow we've undergone a small misunderstanding because when I think about what's gone on and the feelings that have been hurt, including mine, and I know Tommy has suffered some personal injury, and Terry Funk also, well, it hurts me, and I feel like I can talk to you fans because I am hardcore, because even when I was with different other wrestling organizations, the hardcore fans seemed to gather around me because I was hardcore, and we seem to have more than just a fan-wrestler relationship. No, I'm not going to be with you people this next coming show, although I'd like to because I have commitments elsewhere. But I'd like to feel that I could be there in spirit. I'd like to feel that I could help. And so I'm going to go out on a line here and ask you for a personal favor. And I know I don't deserve it because of my actions, but I'd like to just start all over and tell you fans I think part of the problem is, well, it's Tommy. And it stems from a very good part of his heart where he wants nothing else but to make you fans happy. And I know how it used to hurt him when you called him names and said he wasn't hardcore. And I think he's gone over the edge trying to prove you wrong. And I think it's reached a point where, he's suffering some moral and physical consequences for his action. And I'd like to see that stop. And you have the power to do that, ECW fans, by just, not encouraging hardcore behavior, because I know Tommy, and deep down he's a nice, sensitive kid, and he'd no sooner hit someone with a frying pan than I would, hurt a harmless animal. And I don't want to hurt animals, and I know Tommy doesn't want to hurt people. So when you go out there, and he goes out there, Tommy's got some darn good amateur skills. And I think that it's about time he started showing them. And I think it's time that the fans accepted Tommy for the sweet, sensitive guy he can be, and not this guy who's trying to hurt me. And he dragged the hardcore out of me because I am hardcore. And now we're at a place where everything's in its place. I'm hardcore. I think we're back to where we used to be, where the fans accept me and kind of forgive me for some of the things I might have said. And so just in conclusion, just don't encourage Tommy. And I think that we'll all be a lot better off. So until next time, let's put up those fingers. Bang, bang!
And thank you very much to Tom for stepping into my boots for that bulk of the show. Not a lot to cover TV-wise in the final 2 weeks of the month. Essentially, it was I think 4 matches from the show we just covered. Of the major matches, we didn't see Sabu and Hackmeyers, and I don't think we saw Whipwreck and Austin or the main event. But we certainly got the bulk of the big matches from the show we just seen. Only 2 things of note really from the TV. First of all was we saw a match between Rey Mysterio and Mikey Whipwreck. I think that was actually happened prior to November to Remember. The stipulation was if Mysterio beat Whipwreck, then Mysterio would get the title shot that Sandman ended up winning. Basically, that stipulation wouldn't have been involved in that tag match had Mysterio pinned Whipwreck. He didn't. Whipwreck won that match. That was quite good. They showed kind of fan cam footage of that almost. And the other real note, it wasn't really much of a note, was we had a big long montage of promos at the end of the 28 show, and Cactus Jack did seem quite remorseful and quite happy and in holiday mode and in a mood to be joyful, obviously around Thanksgiving and all of that, and he was being quite cheery for what that's worth. So that really covers that. We have one real talking point this month before we finish, which is the future of the Public Enemy. As we alluded to during our review, lost the tag titles and are being kind of speaking with both the WWF and WCW. Tom, I guess the question is, which company would you rather see them in?
I don't mean to be clever, but neither. I don't think that going by, and we touched on it earlier, the example of Sabu, there is much of a path that has been laid for Public Enemy to follow. What I would say about them is that a tag team are more easily included in a roster because you can. There isn't as much focus on each individual.
Yeah, you can create something that's greater than the sum of its parts, which I think in the Public Enemy's case is pretty much the definition of what they are.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think as a team, and I don't know for sure, but I'm not sure if they're going to keep the name. I think their name is a fantastic tag team name, and I think that's really got, you know, for the characters they portray, that really helps them along. But I think I'd like to say that I think they'll do quite well, but I don't think they're going to do really well. What I actually think is going to happen is that they're going to fail, and I think for them. They're going to want more money. They're going to want more regular work. So for them, I can totally see why they're doing it. I just don't have the confidence that either company will know how to handle them or how best to use them. Certainly not down at WCW. But within the current landscape, I don't really think they fit in it either. For the same reasons that we touched on with Sabu earlier, really.
Chris, same question?
I would say, with the other people they would work with, I would probably put them in WCW because you can put them in walking brawls with the likes of the Nasty Boys, with the likes of Harlem Heat, and you can cover their shortfalls. Obviously, you're not going to use the table spots that they use in the ECW, but WCW would be an easier place to cover their shortfalls. WWF needs tag teams. WWF needs to definitely sort of boost that tag team roster because what have you got? You've got the Smoking Guns, and that's about it, really. You know, they're not sort of brimming with tag talent. So any new faces would be beneficial there, but the style of match they would be able to have, I think they'd fit better with what's in WCW than what's in WWF.
Yeah, I would agree pretty much with everything you said, Chris. I think in terms of, I don't know whether that style of walking brawl tag match we're ever likely to see much of in WCW. I mean, you go back to kind of last April when the Nasty Boys and Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan and Max Payne were having that series of really good tag matches, and then WCW went, we'd rather not the violence. That being said, we did have, so I suppose that match at, Uncensored, that, sterile, street fight, which sounds like a weird thing to say, but go back and watch that. Yeah, I know what you mean. I would still like to see these guys face the Nasty Boys. I think even in an in-ring tag match, I feel like if they gave them enough freedom, not necessarily to do violent stuff, but just enough time, and all four guys are motivated enough to go out there and have a proper brawl, I think that could be a lot of fun. And equally on the WWF side of things, I completely agree. There aren't many tag teams out there. They'd go in and you imagine they'd get focused on pretty soon, you would think. Whereas in WCW maybe there'd be a bit more time. But yeah, no, I think I'm in agreement that I would rather see them in WCW. I think there's a bit more opportunity there long term. But equally, both guys are pretty old now. They ain't got that long left. And there is also the thought that, a bit like we said with Sabu earlier, in that Paul Heyman is very good at taking an act that's not great and making them look, you know, Paul Heyman's great at shining shit in many ways. Not any ECW act shit, but he's best at getting a lot out of, very limited resources. I think whoever ends up signing them, if they do indeed leave, I think they're going to find out quite quickly these guys are more limited than they perhaps realise. But equally, like, you know, it's not to say these guys couldn't change, it's just whether, you know, Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge outside of this Public Enemy, yeah, I talk about some of their parts. Whether you take away the tag team element of their game, e.g. the way they dress, their name, their look, their style, and you put these two into a different gimmick, I don't know that it works. Tom, any more to add on anything me and Chris said?
No, well, I was just thinking, imagine the match we would have in our hands if somehow Paul Lee managed to pull it off and get the Nasty Boys down to ECW.
Oh, man.
No, I mean, that's the main event right there. It would be awesome. And that's when you think about that, and then you think about, okay, let's imagine Public Enemy versus the Nasties in WCW. That alone tells you about how good of a move it is for me, for these guys, in terms of their work ethic. But
I think them versus the Heat would be a lot of fun too. Even in a more, that's what I mean. I think if you look at, I say there's opportunity in WWF. There's opportunity in the sense that there's not many other people between them and the Smoking Guns, but there's not many teams they've got to work with now. We talk about WWF this month having, you know, fewer shows, fewer dates, a shrinking roster. In many ways, I'm quite surprised WWF are even talking to them, given that they could probably do with strengthening in other areas. But yeah, you look at the list of tag teams WCW have got and the potential tag teams they could form. Yeah, it could be a lot of fun. Chris, anything more?
No, I think we pretty much said it all with, you know, where would be best for them. The only thing I would just say is, if you split these two up or drastically change the gimmick, obviously, you know, there may be some rights issues with calling them the Public Enemy and keeping the name Flyboy and Rocco Rock and coming out to Hot Stepper. Obviously, that would have to go for WWF and WCW. Though WCW would probably find some way of having Hot Stepper but changing it slightly in a different key or something. They need to be this as Public Enemy. Yeah, you can give it a different name. You could call them, you know, the Hoodlums or something like that. Is fine, but they need to be this. You couldn't put them in, for argument's sake, Cowboys and make them Smoking Guns Mark II. It would never work. They have to be the Hoodies.
Might make them the Rockers.
Copyright.
The new Rockers.
The new rocker, the new but old Rockers.
Yeah, the older Rockers.
Yeah, the Rockers that can still rock.
Out of shape. Yeah, no, I'm going for that. But yeah, no, I think it'll be interesting how this develops. I think in the short term, Paul Heyman wants to keep hold of them. Just, you know, there's a few guys that are kind of halfway out the door. Another guy that we didn't really mention, but Cactus Jack is sort of having some preliminary discussions with WWF. I think Paul Heyman wants to kind of, he doesn't want these guys to leave abruptly as much as he's taken the tag titles off the Public Enemy. He wants to tell a story on them on their way out. I think in terms of, say, Guerrero and Malenko, who left fairly sharpish, and what happened with Sabu. I think for the sake of his own storytelling and for the sake of his own audience, I think he wants to be able to tell a proper kind of leaving arc for these guys. I'm interested to see how that goes. Anyway,
that's the problem with not having people under contracts.
Exactly.
You can't guarantee that sort of thing.
Exactly. Anyway, that will wrap up this month's show. Firstly, Chris Lacey. Thank you very much, Chris.
You're welcome, Bob.
Chris, promote your wrestling podcast.
Well, as we all know now, I am the co-host of Super Rules. We are just about to finish 1990 of WCW, with some magic tricks at Halloween 1990 with the Black Scorpion. Yes, it's as bad as it sounds, but you have to watch it just to see how bad it can be. You can find us on Twitter at Super Brawls, on Facebook at Super Brawls, and if you look on the iTunes, we're there too. Just search Super Brawls. And if you want to hear my random rants about football, wrestling, current products, and gigs that I'm going to, you can follow me on Twitter at Lacey555666.
Chris, how long are we going to be before I can get on your show and review Battle Bowl 93? Because I'm giddy for that.
Well, seeing the fact that we hit the year anniversary in August, and that was when we finished the 80s, so we've done pretty much a year in 4 months, so you're 2 years away, so about 8 months. We'll get there.
Next summer, excellent.
So around next summertime, you can come and join us for Battle Bowl.
Carve out an evening to review. Oh, that's a show. Tom Martyn, thank you very much for partly doing my job, but for appearing on the show. Thank you, Tom.
It's a pleasure, Bob. Absolute pleasure, mate.
You are on Twitter.
I am indeed. Yeah, mark out Martyn. That's with a Y.
Excellent. You'll be hearing from Tom next, I think, on the UFC show we'll be doing. I thought we're recording that next weekend, aren't we? I've got to watch that.
We are. Likewise.
So we've got to get round to that at some point. Just quickly, we rearranged the show generally about 4 times. So thank you to both. The reason Tom ended up doing the match review was that we subbed Tom in, and I didn't have time to go and rewatch the show to do what I needed to do to properly present it. So Tom came in and then thankfully did my job for me, which was good. A little bit all over the place. Next month we've got like a buttload. If you got to the end of this show, having listened to the other 2, we've got a buttload of shows for you next month. I think we're doing 5. It was going to be 6. But we've cut one of the end of year review shows, but we've still got the awards on the end. But anyway, just to go through my own wrap up, you can find me on Twitter at Bobby Bamber. You can find the podcast on Twitter at Wrestling20YRS. We're on Facebook.com/Wrestling20YRS. iTunes, RSS, emails, or on the website. And that's been it. So I've been, but Bobby Bamber, this has been, I almost opened with that, but I thought people are going to think it's too weird, so I'll think up the end. I've been Bob Bamber. This has been, volume 3 of the November 1995 edition of the Wrestling 20 Years Ago podcast. And until next time, goodbye.